Hey everybody, I wasn't going to shoot a video of this particular sort of trash project. This ugly thing actually has an important use to me, or it will. Um, but as you can see from all of this buildup of weirdness here, what the heck is that guy doing? All right, well this is what I'm doing. We'll start here. This is my shredder. It's a great little thing to have, cross-cut shredder. The problem is that it has such a minimal capacity. The thing, when it gets about halfway full, stuff that's hanging down from the top, from the blades here, gets sucked back into the blades and can clog the thing up. And it's irritating. So then to have a shredder, you also have to have like a baggy thing where you can keep dumping your shredding. So this happens to be just one of those wireframe assemblies that holds a bag open, which is a great thing. I love these. But I don't want two things sitting there all the time, and I also don't want to have to go to this thing and decide, well, I want to shred something, but it's kind of full, and then I'll sit a piece of paper next to the shredder and it'll become a shred pile. Well, then the shred pile builds up, and I hate that. So what I want is a thing that's just always going to be there and has much greater capacity. And why buy a new shredder? This thing's perfectly fine. So I had the idea of building a like wooden lid for this thing so that I could cut a hole in it, cut a hole in the bottom of the shredder, and then mount the shredder into this thing. And then there you go. I've got a nice, much larger capacity thing. I might even take like an old dresser or something that we don't need anymore. Take all the drawers out, glue the drawer panels on the front, and then just the whole inside of the dresser will be the bag caddy. But any of the dressers that I have available to me that I can do that with, just old stuff that's here in the basement, requires a lot of stripping and handling. So this is just something I built out of scraps. So what it does, you can see here, this is routed away and then chiseled to accommodate these wire lips here. And then this lid just snaps directly onto that, which is great. When I was putting it together, I had made up my mind to simply make a square frame and then glue some plywood on top of it. And then I come to find that the piece of plywood that I want to use, because it's almost perfect, is not quite wide enough. Well, simply then you use a channel, like route a channel in it, and then put the wood inside that. You would normally do that before you install it or have planned to do it, and I didn't think of that ahead of time. So I had to do it after the fact. And I didn't do a perfectly straight job of it. So then what I wanted is to fill in some of these gaps from the parts that I cut, and that's where the experiment started. So I'm experimenting with methods of filling gaps in stuff with stuff that I have. So I thought, well, I've got wood shavings on the floor from where I was planing something. So then I put some glue in the gap and then use a jackknife to stuff wood shavings into the gap. Here's just a big old chunk of wood for a big old gap that I wanted to fill in. Here's another one. And this was the real weird one. I had a big chip out when I was routing, big triangular chip out. And comically, I think that's it. But I'd already started doing this by the time I found this little piece. So anyway, what I've done here is, again, this is all just wood shavings that I wedged into this gap with a whole bunch of glue and then clamped it down. These guys are because the piece that I'd cut that I wanted to use for this spar, it was a 2x4, and one side of the 2x4 it was cut sort of trapezoidally, right? So then the one piece was just slightly off, and I thought, well, that's fine, because when I glue the plywood on top of it, I'm simply going to round the corners off anyway, and it'll be fine. But when I couldn't glue this on top, rounding the corners off along that cut line is actually going to go through the plywood and expose part of the ply, which is the entire thing you're trying to hide when you recess the plywood into the wood. And I thought, well, what the heck, you know, I mean, I don't need this to look perfect because this is just going to sit in the basement and be a shredder. But for fun, I thought I'd challenge myself and see how this turns out. So let's let this glue dry up and see what kind of results we get. All right, so admittedly, it does look kind of crappy, but it's an interesting experiment just to see what it would look like, what it would turn out like, and we'll see a little more when I sand it out. All right, here's what we're left with. It's flat. It's not super awesome and smooth and stuff, and there's a lot of wood filler you can see in cracks, but that doesn't bother me at all because this is going to sit in the basement and serve a function. I was going to trace around this and cut it so that this wedged into the hole because I was just going to rough cut. However, this bin happened to have a lip right halfway down, and it made a beautifully flat and smooth cut. So, change of plan. I'm going to cut inside so that we're still going to get a nice clean transition from the bucket to the lid, and I can secure this from the inside by just gluing a couple of little wood blocks on either side and putting a screw into it, and it'll do just as good a job. There's really not going to be a lot of paper that gets stuck because it can't fall straight down the hole into the bag. That really isn't a concern. So we're almost done. I think I'll trace and cut my hole, and the hole doesn't even have to look that good. It just has to be a hole. And then I'll secure this or find a way to secure it, stain, and we are beauty. And then it's time to test. Sawdust.